Hi everybody, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, a chat with Gilbert Cantu of Little Jade Bonsai. It is the start of season 2 of my Up North Bonsai podcast, and our first guest this time around is Mr. Gilbert Cantu. And we actually head out of the upper Midwest. I typically head up north. This time we're going way south, talking to Gilbert Cantu of Little Jade Bonsai down in Corpus Christi, Texas. Now, why down there and it's an Up North Bonsai podcast? Well, you know, the PAs, the Portulacaria Afras, can be grown anywhere in the world probably with a lot of success. Indoor in the wintertime for us hardy upper Midwesterners, and down there, his trees right now are in a winter dormancy as well for the most part, and not in as much of sun, not grown as much. I'll let him tell you all about that. If you want to catch this Up North Bonsai podcast in its entirety, make sure you check out my website, bonsaiacres.com. I'll also put the link in the description of this video. Part 1 of a 2-part series. Let's go talk to Gilbert down in Corpus Christi. How did this all begin for you? Where did your bonsai first enter your world?
You know, it all started about 20 years ago. My wife and I got married. She got pregnant right away. And, you know, we were like, living in our apartment and kind of bored, and we would go to Target a lot. And this is back when Target had a plant section with live plants, and so we go and I saw a little juniper there, and we had just watched The Karate Kid, and I'm like, man, I always wanted to get one. And so I ended up buying it, and, and then I started reading about it, and then I went to Barnes and Noble and I bought a book. So it just kind of all started from there. And, I started just looking up, I just got the bug, right? I completely just became enveloped in everything about it, and the different species. And I didn't even, I thought you can grow any tree anywhere. And so I had a little balcony, and I started buying a lot of trees from eBay. Stuff that didn't even grow here. Like Japanese maples and, all types of species. And I found a jade, a Portulacaria Afra from a grower in Florida. And, I saw it had a nice little quirky trunk. And so I bought it for it was like $55. I got it, and I'm like, man, this tree is awesome. But from about 3 months, I accumulated maybe 40 to 50 trees in my little balcony. It was just filled with all kinds of plants. And we went out of town and came back, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing. So I ended up, by the end of the summer, I had killed all of them. And it's just crazy. They all slowly died for one reason or another, except for the Portulacaria. Found out Corpus, my city, had a club, joined the club, and it was awesome, because the clubs are, the bonsai clubs are, you learn so much from more than just what's online or a book, and it's people that have worked on this species before. And I've tried all kinds of species that actually grow here. A lot of tropicals and junipers, and but throughout the time, they've kind of eliminated themselves, because life happens. I get busy. I had a beautiful juniper I had styled, and I had it there in its pot, and we went out of town and came back, got busy with work, and in the middle of summer, and just fried the tree. It was so hot, and kind of how I ended up. It's like growing what works in your climate.
So when did you go exclusively PAs? Has it been about 18 now of your last 20 years? Do I remember right from your website?
I went kind of exclusively, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago. Started a new job back then, and I kind of introduced everybody in my office, all my buddies that I met, and it kind of, I had always kept my trees. I always had trees, but 20 to 30 or something like that, wasn't too many. And then by then, that's when it was just like, I'm going to start taking cuttings. Golly, before you know it.
Well, and especially with PAs, I know, and even in my climate, I just trimmed some PAs a month or so ago here when I put my trees into my plant room, and I've already got a tray of 36 cuttings over there to my right.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all, and like I've got 98% success. I think one died.
I mean that's the same thing with me. I'm constantly rooting them anywhere I can find room. I have containers. I put old bonsai soil, old potting soil, and I mean I just stick them in there. And I had a nice Nandina that was really big that I bought in this big pot. It died in the summer because it was so hot. So I had already stuck a bunch of cuttings in there, and it kind of overtook the pot anyway.
I ask everybody this because I think it's super important. And again, we're going to take a lot of what you're going to say and we're going to adapt it to the folks who listen in the upper Midwest and grow trees in the Minnesota climate. I mean, today was 17 degrees when I left work, And
oh, wow.
The other day was 6 above with 9 below wind chill. So it's nothing like Corpus Christi. So let's go to your neck of the woods first. What's your microclimate there in Corpus Christi?
I'm literally probably 10, 11 miles, not even that, from the Gulf of Mexico. So we're right. We're right on Corpus Christi Bay. We're close to the water. Everything rusts outside because of all the salty air, and so there's a lot of humidity. I mean, it's always humid, and it's always hot, And even when we get the cool front just wintertime. Like we got one not too long ago, and it lasted a few days, and it's back in the we were in the I think mid 80s today. So it's it gets hot, and right. So I keep my trees on the side of my house where they get the morning sun, right? The sun comes up and they're in the sun, and then noon, I mean, I'm talking about from maybe summertime, right? Then by noon they're in the shade for the rest of the day. And so they get the morning sun. It's hot, but like now, I mean, since we are kind of in the winter, equinox, is that what it is? It's like they're not even getting any sun at all right now.
Okay. But they're all still outside. You got plenty of heat, but you're not getting a whole lot of sun right now.
But they're outside, they're getting bright light from the sky, so I mean, so they are getting light. The biggest thing is it just comes down to bright light, whether it's indirect light, direct sunlight. Sometimes even like in the summer when it gets the hottest point of summer, I mean, I can't have any indirect sunlight, like I can't have any in the middle of my backyard because they just get real light and color, and they're not going to die, of course. They're just going to, they're not going to thrive as much as the balance, sure. Some sunlight, some shade.
So much great information from Gilbert, and we continued our conversation talking about that dormancy concept. Does he really have it down there in Corpus Christi? And he gets cold down there. He can get down into freezing, and as a matter of fact, he shares in this next segment about a recent cold snap that they had down there with all that ice storms in Texas, which messed up gas prices and all that. He lost a lot of trees, so he talks about that with us. And how difficult that was. He also shares about his microclimate down there, the best parts of that, and the whole indoor versus outdoor when you're talking about PAs. Let's head back down to Texas with Gilbert Cantu. Do you have any dormancy kind of, when they down in the summer because of that heat, and that's your dormant season, or what do you say about that?
Right now I'm still trimming them. I haven't watered because we're kind of in that it's still humid, but it gets cold at night a little bit. Not too bad. I say cold for us, like right. 60s, maybe 50s. So, I mean, usually by now I'm not even watering, they're just out there, and sometimes I'll trim them, but usually from like December to February, I don't do any trimming. Once or twice a year we'll get down close to freezing or below freezing.
Sure.
I mean, they'll stay outside as long as it's above freezing.
Yeah.
But when it gets close to freezing, I'll bring in my nicer trees into my garage. Yeah. And then the rest I'll just put on the ground up against my house under my tables, and I'll throw blankets over them.
So when it does go below freezing, or that's the forecast, you're covering them more than putting them in and doing the bonsai shuffle.
Yeah, that's it. In and out. I mean, but sometimes I'll just keep them on the ground in the coldest parts of the year, and then I'll throw blankets over them and I'll uncover them, and I have a whole stack of blankets in my garage that I do that with, just because it's so much to bring them in and out. February 2021 was when we had that insane Arctic blast that we had here.
Yeah,
where they were below freezing here for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days straight.
4 or 5 days. Yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah.
I mean, that was insane. But there are trees, I mean, big, large 40-year-old trees that died that have never experienced that. And it snowed here before, but nothing like that. And so I made the mistake of, I had already been taking them in and out. And that when we were getting that freeze, I'm like, well, I'll just put 2 blankets over them. I'll tuck them in real good.
Yeah.
And that's where I screwed up, because the cold came in from the bottom, but we were below freezing for a couple of days. And I lost 297 trees. Yeah.
I've seen your yard on the YouTube videos, and you've got quite a row of trees there. So you must have, do you have thousands of them or hundreds, and you lost a third of them? What was that about?
After that, I had probably had a little over 100 trees left. Wow. I mean, some bigger trees. I mean, that were maybe 10, 12 years old.
The cold, that kind of cold is not good for an awful lot of trees. And there's a lot of people that talk about, so it goes down to freezing one night, but that might have been an hour or two if it's hovering right around 32, 31, 30. But a lot of our trees, the temperate trees in Minnesota, where I am at, in the upper Midwest, the roots aren't even close to that temperature yet. The outside branches and everything, they're okay. But now a succulent and like the PA, all the moisture's in the foliage, right? I mean, so if you freeze, are they just dropping leaves and do they just die that way? Or how do PAs damage? Because you've seen it now with harsh conditions. What happens to them?
There's just as much water in the leaves as there are in the trunk. I've bunched them really close together and put blankets on them, and it's got so cold that it's kind of penetrated that. I've had some where the trunk has been fine, but all the branches have, it just depends. It kind of comes in from the outside in. Took the blankets off when we came above freezing, when it froze. And the trunks, everything was brown and it was like mush, Yeah. It's what root rot is, but it's just, a couple times I've been able to cut off some of the dead stuff, all the dead branches, and then the main trunk is still green. Yeah. And I've had that come back. Yeah. So it's kind of, it just depends on where the freezing part hits the most.
Just like anything else, I suppose, in bonsai, if bug infestation hits this part of the tree and that limb dies, or if it gets cold on one side more than the other. And like you said before, if you put in a couple of blankets on top, but you have your trees up on, we tell people in Minnesota that, we heal our trees into the ground with some mulch and stuff to get that little bit of that thermal heat so it doesn't get, if you keep them on a bench in Minnesota, they're going to get cold from the bottom up, and the roots are going to be the first to be damaged, right?
Right. I have them outside. I have them up against my house and on the ground. The ground's still warm, and, we've had, the last time we had snow, I had blankets on my trees, and there was snow on top of the blankets. But it wasn't below freezing for very long, and they were all fine.
What is the best part of your climate then for PAs? Why have you found such a niche there? What do they love the most? What do they love in your yard, in that area of the country? What do PAs like?
The heat, heat, and, if, of course, they thrive outdoors. And so that's kind of my biggest thing. A lot of people bring them inside, and I'm like, they're only going to thrive inside if you have full spectrum lighting very close to the plant. It doesn't matter even if you have a big window and the sun's coming in. There's still, I had my old office was like that. The sun came in, they would kind of hang on for a few months and then, start dropping their inner leaves. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, no, they just do better outside. So that's something where we push with the new folks all the time. It's like, keep these trees outside as long as you can. Yeah. they thrive outdoors. So wintertime is always the tricky part. And this is the part where I start getting a ton of messages that I brought my tree indoors and it's dropping leaves. And I'm like, it's going to do that. It's kind of cold, hot and cold, the humidity. And so everything's just kind of staying moist. But they're still getting bright light. I mean, I brought, a couple, this one in, the leaves, it's crazy because when I water them in the summer a lot, the leaves are really plump. They do great here. And it's just, I mean, that's kind of what I like to preach is just kind of grow what thrives in your climate. And it just makes it easier to keep things alive. And in the winter, I mean, in the summertime, I water daily. The soil drains really quick. So, I mean, I'm watering daily, but of course it's hot. So I can water in the morning and by evening they're already dried, and
you brought up fertilization there. Then let me ask you this. Do you notice a difference in the growth then as far as, are you getting longer and leggier growth if you don't fertilize? Are you getting shorter, more compact growth in the summer than the winter? How does your fertilization, do you think, affect your specific trees?
My main goal is I want them to grow faster. Okay. I want them to be green, to be, to kind of develop this dark green color that they're capable of, and I want the leaves to be plump. So, when I'd say late March, everything kind of starts really, really warming up. That's when I start my routine, which is I apply Osmocote once a month and I water them in with Liquid Miracle Grow. It's just like an all-purpose fertilizer. And I always resort back to that because using those, the slow release and then the liquid, I'll do the Liquid Miracle Grow every 2 weeks, especially whenever, like if I'm the springtime, they're already kind of looking a little scraggly from the wintertime because I haven't really trimmed them much. And so that's usually when I start styling them, or trimming them up. And so what I do is I'll fertilize them. Well, I'll trim them first. And if I'm going to defoliate, I'll defoliate. And then I just pump them with fertilizer. And they'll pop everywhere along the base of the trunk, all along the trunk.
Sure.
And then like I said, the leaves get real plump. I shipped a tree to a friend of mine who lives in Michigan, and he used to buy a lot of my trees. And he's like, man, your trees, the leaves look like jelly beans, when he gets them, he's like, they're just so big and plump. And and it's like the way it is whenever it rains, and like people are like, oh, we got to keep them out of the rain. Well, it depends on your soil. My soil drains really quick. And because when it does rain, everything just swells up the trunks. But soil is a huge factor.
Going down the soil well, huh? Yeah. It's always a debate, Gilbert. What you don't have to tell me your secret recipe. Of course, you have on your online, I think. But So you're saying you use more the smaller particles? Is that for all your trees, regardless of size? Tell me more about your soil.
My friend, it's funny. My friend David Whitaker, that he was there at the club when I first joined. He told me something a long time ago that when I first started, it always stuck with me. He says, you want your soil to drain quickly, right? He's like, you want to be able to have a glass of water and you want to be able to pour that water and it be draining out and not pooling up in your pot. And I'm like, okay. So, I have always stuck with that, but, you have going again, you have to use what's available to you. A lot of people like to use lava and pumice. I love lava, and if I can add lava rock to my soil, I would. It's hard for me to find, and because I like the red lava. Pumice is great. It's a lot like lava, but for me, I almost feel like it's not aesthetic enough. It doesn't look natural, in the soil. Like I want the soil to look kind of like soil. It's just a personal preference,
Absolutely. That is bonsai. Everybody's got their own opinion, right?
Yeah. I use calcined clay, which is turfus, which they sell it for what, baseball fields, I think. I mean, I get a huge bag for like $14. I mean, it's cheap. And then I also use expanded shale if I can find it.
Okay.
And I'll sift that out too, all the big pieces out. And my local nursery sells big bags of it's called landscapers mix. Has, you know, different types of bark, pine bark, and other little, you know, organic pieces. Yeah, I sift all that out. Maybe 80% inorganic, you know, just about 20% of the organic. So it drains quick. It does hold moisture, but when you're trying to develop your roots, especially on the Portulacaria, big soil, you know, a lot of people get the big 1/4 inch or even a little bit bigger pieces of soil.
Yeah.
If you have fine soil, you're going to develop fine feeder roots, a lot more feeder roots.
It's like everything else in bonsai. You have to pay attention to your trees, whether you're using fine, medium, or some of those bigger coarse ones. And of course, each one's going to affect your tree differently, but we have to pay attention. We can't go on vacation, Gilbert, and come back and then go to work for a while and have our trees die, right?
Yeah. No, exactly.
I heard a story about that once.
Yeah, but it's also your personal schedule and, you know, what your microclimate and what works for you. And, you know, I have people that live like a few miles down that they have a sprinkler system and they actually have real moss growing on their trees, and I can't grow that, you know?
Yeah. One of the things I really like about Gilbert Cantu's videos is he does a really good job of talking about, of course, the PAs, from his wiring videos, how to do that when you defoliate PAs, lots of good information. And one of the things he does talk about with the PAs in his videos is a nice progression. So go to his Little Jade Bonsai YouTube channel and check out the progression videos that he has from 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're really good videos to show you how fast and quickly you can develop your PAs. Super, super phenomenal. I love watching those videos of his. I wrapped up this part of the conversation, part 1 of our 2-part series, asking him, hey, what's your favorite tree? We know it's the PA, but is there one that stands out as his favorite? Here's what he had to say. One of my favorite videos of yours, I think that a lot of people can watch and get excited about PAs because they are relatively easy to grow. They're fast growers too, I think, and you can see results pretty quick, is your like 6-year progression. You've got that one video where it shows a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and you kind of lay them, you have them all out there because you have multiple trees of the same age. And it's just such a very nice visual to show people like, hey, you can get this stick, or like your real tall, straight one, that video that shows 5 years of progression. It's just really cool to see what you can do in 3 to 5 years with a PA. I think that's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I always say 5 years is, 5 years is a perfect amount of time to turn a little stick into something that's nice.
Yeah.
You know, and it's cool because, I mean, I have sold a lot of trees. I used to, be a pretty active seller on eBay too. Where people will say, is that tree for sale? And I'm like, well, I'm not planning on it, but of course everything's for sale for the right price, right?
That's right.
But I've had a lot of, with bonsai, it's a lot of people consider it like, there's a lot of older people in our club, and that's just the way it is. It's like you retire and you want to do something. And I've had a guy contact me, is like, man, I want to work on trees, but I feel like I don't have a lot of time left. And he says, what do you recommend? And I'm like, well, this is exactly what I recommend, because
totally.
So it's just, I don't know. I mean, it for me, this species, it means so much to me because I've met so many people around the world because they grow everywhere. I mean, I have a ton of friends in India that I've met, in Iran, Australia, just kind of everywhere.
I think that's, that for me this year, in bonsai, what you just said is what makes bonsai one of the most amazing parts of my life right now, is the bonsai community. Just even reaching out to you and your kindness to respond and say, hey, let's chat, you bet. And I just went up to Canada this last year, my road trip with my son, and we met Nigel Saunders, and just the love and the passion and And again, what you said, it doesn't matter where we come from, doesn't matter what we do with our lives in any other capacity. This thing called bonsai, I don't know, the community is pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's just I love it because I don't know, I'm a very earthy person, and I mean, I feel like, okay, these are my people, because I love, I mean, we live on a beautiful planet, and there's just we have to give back, and I feel like we take from nature,
Yeah.
and by by focusing your attention on a little plant, I mean, that's a part of Earth. We can put the energy into that. I mean,
Yeah.
You're showing love for Earth, and
if we all would step out in nature more often, bonsai or not, I mean, the research is there. If you walk through some Hinoki cypresses, they have gardens of Hinoki cypresses just to walk through, and people's blood pressure drop just taking that walk through the Hinoki cypresses. There's scientific studies on that very topic right there. It's just such really cool stuff. So yeah, if you can plant anything, whether it's a bonsai or not, and like you said, be a little more one with nature. I mean, how can we go wrong with that? What has been the jewel of your PAs that just makes you go right now, like, gosh, I just love this tree, and it's kind of my favorite. Do you have any?
Yeah, I have two.
Two. You do?
Yeah.
All right.
so of course, my number one tree, my favorite tree, the tree that I feel like, I mean, we're like best friends, is my first tree that I bought. The one that lived, and I call it the Godfather because it is like the father to most of all my trees. I learned on that tree, and that tree was very patient with me. I brought it indoors.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning, and I Google stuff and say, okay, my tree it's dropping leaves. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And someone says, oh, you're overwatering, so don't overwater it. And I'm like, okay. And so then I stopped watering it, and then it would drop more leaves. And anyway, that tree was very patient with me.
Cool.
I still have it, and it's 35 years old. I've been working on it for 20, and I got it. It was 16 or 36 years old because it was 16 years old. I feel that tree is wise. It's old, but it's patient and it's strong. That's awesome. It's one of the few trees that, I mean, I never get any bugs on it. My second favorite I actually have right here because for me it's the new thing. It's a new Portulacaria, which is the Lilliput. And I don't know if so the Lilliput, and I did a video on it, and this is it right here. Portulacaria, the leaves are small. You trim it back, the leaves are going to develop smaller and smaller. But the Lilliput is a miniature version of a Portulacaria. And it's really new. I think it was I can't remember. I have it on my video, but I think it's only like 5 or 6 years old. I mean, from when it was first discovered, it was a natural mutation that developed. And the leaves, cool. The leaves are really tiny. It has an upright morphology, whereas a lot of people say, "Oh, well, it looks like it's the prostrata because the prostrata has small leaves." Prostrata kind of grows down, and the branches aren't strong, whereas the Lilliput, they grow upward. The leaves are pointy leaves. They look like little elf ears. It grows it grows even faster than the regular Portulacaria, but it takes to wiring really easy and quickly. The leaves come in even smaller. They divide quickly. I mean, and this was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Was when I got this tree from Lowe's or Home Depot. Okay. And it was only like 3 inches tall.
Really?
So I mean, I have pictures of every year, and I wired it, and it took really quickly. Yeah. But it just has, I kind of wired this cool little informal upright shape, and
very nice.
I mean, to me, this is what excites me is this species because, I mean, you can make some really small ones, and yeah, they're cool. I think they're really cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've got your old original and more classic, and now you've got this new species, that brand new baby, and you've got kind of the spectrum and everything in between, probably. So that's awesome. What a
Yeah.
Oh nice, yeah. You got bookends there for all your trees.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, when I take my next road trip south, I might have to get a couple cuttings from some of your trees. I love the lineage of that healthy tree.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, for
That's
sure. I love when people, you know, I mean, I know we're south, way south, but I have people come all the time that did find me on Instagram. I had a guy yesterday came by and he bought a tree, and I had a guy that was actually a pilot fly down, him and his dad from Dallas, and they bought a bunch of trees and we boxed them up and they took them back.
Wow. Awesome.
And so it's just, it's kind of, I mean, I love sharing, and of course, you know, the knowledge is, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy how everybody takes, you know, you want to share and you want to give,
And people are willing to share in the bonsai world, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, that wraps up part one of the PA interview with Gilbert Cantu of Little Jade Bonsai. Check out his YouTube channel. He's got stuff on Instagram. Super great guy and really, really into the PAs. Look at his Halloween posts. Look at his October PA pictures with all the Halloween costumes, and he does Star Wars figures. He has some really some cool images, great photographer. He takes great images of his trees. So check out his work for sure. Gilbert Cantu, part one of Up North Bonsai podcast. Remember, you can check out the entire interview on the Up North Bonsai podcast, which can be found in the link below in the description here. You can also check it out on my website, bonsaiacres.com. That's going to do it for this one. Stay tuned for part two. Hey, until then, take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you very soon.